Yo, what is up guys, Gray here, and today we have got another ranking video, this time for the tier 2 Mons. And first off, if you did miss my tier 1 video, make sure to go and check it out down below. We've got tons of Mons to get through, and there is a few that duplicate with the tier 1 video, but that's because for the most part I'm taking it off of the BBR rankings. But at the same time, there's some of these Mons that I've seen in tier 1, some in tier 2. I've seen some of these in tier 3, some in tier 2, there's going to be some crossover somewhere. But yeah, let's get straight into the ranking. And first up, we've got a load of Marowak, and this is something that I absolutely thought in Gen 7 was complete and utter trash, unless you had Trick Room, and it's still kind of the case, but Poltergeist does actually make it really, really strong in this gen. Fit Club, obviously it hits it really, really hard. I don't think it's quite D tier, but I didn't label my tiers, oh no. So I would say it's like a middle sort of tier. I don't know, I could definitely move it down, depending on what else goes into this B tier at the moment. I'm thinking that certainly a load of Marowak, it hits really, really hard, and if you do have a good Trick Room team, Trick Room being one of the least viable, in my opinion at least, one of the least reliable or viable kind of ways of playing Draft League, kind of makes a load of Marowak not as good, but at the same time it's still a really solid mon, great dual typing, really, really strong attacker. Next up we got Galarian Weezing, and I've seen people literally go from this thing should be tier 1 to this thing should be tier 3. Nobody seems to be able to decide whether or not they like it. To me it's just kind of alright, it's not a bad tier 2 at all. I think its typing is really nice, its abilities are really, really handy. Certainly you can use this to check things that normally you wouldn't be able to check, like Guts Conkeldurr. So yeah, I think this is a really it's a good mon. I would say it's probably in same tier as Marowak. I think maybe it's a bit better, but yeah, Weezing's really, really good. I just think it's not as good as some of the other things in this tier, and actually looking at what else is in this tier, maybe it'll move down. But we'll move on to Chansey for now, and Chansey, for me, it's still not that great. I think people have overhyped it a little bit. When I was talking about the pricing with the guys in PTL, Ethan had a really good point in that Chansey is just it comes in, sure it can heal up, but then it brings in something that threatens it out, and you can kind of keep healing it, or you could just click teleport and you keep getting chipped away to a point in which you actually can't check anything anymore. So I think Chansey is still decent, but I don't think it's as good as these two mons here. It's definitely very fat, but it's susceptible to its Eviolite being knocked off, and once its Eviolite's knocked off, it's obviously a worse Blissey. So yeah, I'd say it's probably C. I don't think it's quite D tier, but then again, we'll have a look at what else goes into these tiers, and then we might make some adjustments later on. Starmie, I really like Starmie in this gen. I believe it gets Flip Turn. I could be wrong on that. Somebody's probably going to quote me in the chat, in the comment section. But Starmie still hits really, really hard with Analytic. If you switch out on it, then it does still get the Analytic boost, and its coverage is just kind of insane. It never needed Hidden Power because it had coverage to hit everything it needed to. Now it gets Meteor Beam as well, so that's a really nice kind of White Herb special attack boost that you can get. Also great coverage as well. I'm trying to think what it hits that it couldn't hit already, but it's an extra coverage move, and also one that can give you a special attack boost, so always handy. And Starmie just generally I think is a really, really strong mon. Gyarados I think is up there as well. This thing is a threat even without being able to use one of its stabs effectively, because of Bounce being 2-turn move, and 2-turn moves generally aren't very good. They can be good in certain situations, but you really just need nothing to be able to check it to be able to use that effectively. But Dragon Dance set is really, really effective. If Dynamax is a thing, then this thing is just tier 1, high tier tier 1 as well. But Gyarados has great coverage against Power Whip in this gen, and with Dragon Dance there's very few things that will be able to switch into it, and it's got good enough coverage that it can actually do a lot of work. But it does always need the Dragon Dance, and definitely needs team support as well, and its speed tier is just not that great without a Dragon Dance, and it's obviously times 4 weak to Electric, so it can definitely lose to quite a few things with Electric coverage, but it's still a really, really strong mon, and I think definitely A tier. Snorlax, I want to put it above Chansey if it will let me. It's definitely better than Chansey, but it's certainly worse this gen than it was in the previous gens. Mostly because, if you weren't aware, the what was 50% berries is now 33% berries, as far as I'm aware. I think that's right. And that just kind of takes one of its sets and makes it just worse, just generally worse. Not to mention that it doesn't get return anymore, and that's one of the big things with like a lot of normal types, is that it's now relying on coverage, it's relying on body slam, which it was one of the main moves it uses anyway. Like, body slam was always solid on Snorlax, but now it has to run it. It can't run a higher power base power move. So double edge, I think, is the only other one it can run. So yeah, Snorlax still pretty decent. I think it's better than Chansey because like it's got more versatility than Chansey, but certainly worse this gen than the previous gens. Politoed, I think, is still D tier, even though it sets up Rain. It's just kind of bad. Like, I think you can't base it without Rain because like it's gonna be running Drizzle all the time, and it can hit hard. And I've seen a belly drum set sweep Dr. Slacking map, and it was funny, but at the same time, this thing is just not that good. Perish Song sets are all right. It can spam Hydro Pump in the rain, which is always kind of nice, but it's certainly outclassed, I think, by Pelipper by quite some way, in my opinion. So next up we've got Slowking, and people seem to be really high on Slowking. I understand why it is. I don't think it's quite S tier, but I do think it's higher than the other waters in this A tier, which is just completely being taken over by water types. But water types are always really, really strong, and yeah, Slowking is definitely much better this gen. Having access to teleport and obviously the ability Regenerator makes it fantastic pivot. Sponges special hits, and you can run like fully Fizz Death and it'll still sponge special hits. Teleport being the main thing, like it gets Slack Off, it gets similar to Starmie, it gets tons of coverage. Also fantastic in Trick Room. Really, really bulky mon, so I think generally Slowking is better than Starmie, but I don't think it's quite S tier. I think there's going to be a few things here that are S tier, but I'm kind of reluctant to kind of throw 10 mons into S tier because really I feel that's like reserved for the top mons. Heracross I think is definitely like arguably A tier, but I'm going to just put it in B tier, but like top end B tier. Dual Stabs for me are absolutely incredible. Moxie Scarf, you can run Guts as well. Swords Dance, it gets spikes in this gen as well. So Heracross is a really, really good mon. Certainly more offensively based. Like, you're very rarely going to be running spikes in my opinion, unless you are sure that you can get them up or a guaranteed switch out. But then Heracross does actually force a lot of switches, so spikes maybe not that bad, but at the same time you kind of want coverage. It gets knockoff, Mega Horn, obviously close combat. Really, really strong mon. I think it gets checked by quite a lot in this gen, but at the same time it's still a phenomenal physical attacker that can do a ton of work. Skarmory, honestly, I think if it's in tier 2, I think it's high end A tier. I don't think it's quite S tier even at tier 2. I think this thing is very, very strong, but I think there's definitely things down here that I can see that I would put above it. If you probably want a good description on Skarmory as to why I think it's so good, you go to the tier 1 one. But at the same time, it gets 2 lots of hazards and spikes and Stealth Rock, it gets Defog, Iron Defense, Body Press is a set this gen. If only it got U-Turn, and it would actually be good. Like, if it got U-Turn, it's like arguably one of the best pivots in the game, in my opinion at least. And without it, it's just, it really struggles to kind of, it has 4 move syndrome. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here. Like, it has 4 move syndrome, and sometimes you want to run like 2 lots of hazards, but you also want to run Whirlwind, you want to run an attacking move, you want Toxic. Like, Skarmory is fantastic, but it's always going to have like 1 move that you want, and you're not going to be able to run it. Kingdra for me is S tier. So Kingdra hits so hard in the rain, and I think this is one of those things that, again, like, you're not drafting this on anything other than a rain team. In my opinion, like, there is no reason to draft Kingdra. If it's not in the rain, it's D tier. It's not good. But in the rain this gen, it's so powerful. Hurricane is a huge buff for it because it means that it's got a base 110, I think it's base 110, maybe 130, I'm not entirely sure what Hurricane's base power is, but it gets it 100% accurate, chance to confuse as well. It hits the grass types super hard, and obviously hits it fighting types better. Other than that, you just hit Hydro Pump. You just click Hydro Pump, Draco, Meteor, Surf. It gets Flip Turn as well, so physical sets are better. It gets Liquidation as well. Like, Kingdra is so strong in the rain, and honestly, you could just have Kingdra by itself in the rain, and it can fill every niche that you want in terms of a rain sweeper. So for me, it's a really strong one. Not to mention it does get the Focus Energy Sniper set, which is obviously inferior to a Swift Swim set if you're running rain, but yeah, to me, Kingdra just is so good in tier 2 if you have the right rain team. And yeah, I don't need to say much more about Kingdra. P2 is extremely good in this gen. It's a much better Chansey in my opinion. And with Eviolite, it's so tanky. It gets Teleport, also gets Recover, and it doesn't necessarily fear physical attackers like Chansey does. So it's not always clicking Teleport just to escape. Tri-Attack gives you a good chance to be able to get some kind of status, not to mention it's got 3 usable abilities as well. You can use it offensively. I know my good friend Shroomraver, he has brought it physical. For a physical? No, that's a terrible set. Don't run it physical. He's run like an offensive P2 quite a few times with download and just like run through teams in Trick Room. P2 is arguably the best Trick Room setter. Maybe Slowking in this meta, but like I said, Trick Room isn't always relevant in Draft League as it is in Ladder, because for the most part, Trick Room is very obvious and your opponent will try and prep for it. But yeah, P2 just a fantastic bulky mon, and if you add that to a core which isn't weak to fighting, then P2 is going to be causing so many issues. Blissey, for me, is a better Chansey in this gen. Bit more special attack, so it's not as passive. But other than that, just like see Chansey for more information. Basically, it's just a passive sort of Wish Passer or Special Sponge. Outside of that, it really doesn't have a great niche at all. Blissey is very good. With Teleport, it does get better. But again, I just don't think it's that great in this gen. Even with those buffs, it's still too passive for me, and it is better than Chansey, but not by a whole lot. Celebi, I think, is like up here, maybe higher. Actually, yeah, I think it's higher. I think is it better than Heracross? It's around the same point, I think. Celebi is really good. I used it in APA Academy, and it was really solid. It gets so many sets it can run now: Swords Dance, Nasty Plot, Calm Mind. It can be a pivot, it can be a cleric. It's just there's so many sets it can run, and it just does it so well. Sure, it's 4 times weak to U-turn, but as long as you build your team around it, then I don't think that is an issue at all. And its typing just is fantastic. It checks so many things it needs to. Offensively, Grass Psychic is also very good. So Celebi being base 100s across the board gives it so much versatility. Good movesets on both the physical and the special side. Aura Sphere is a great addition to it. Being able to hit things like bulky normals and dark types for super effective damage, as well as still types as well. It means you don't have to run earth power necessarily. You can hit more things that it struggles to hit with Aura Sphere. So yeah, Celebi, much better this gen. Pelipper, honestly, I gotta put it in A tier, just because Rain is such a good, very reliable way of kind of just being able to have a win con. I think that Rain, actually, I've probably put it higher. I think it's there. Like, it's not S tier because the Pokemon itself is not that great, but at the same time, it does take advantage of its own weather. It can get 100% accurate Hurricanes. Can spam Hydro Pump, Scold, and also gets initiative in U-turn, as well as things like Knock Off and Defog, which are always really handy to have. I just think as a Rain or a weather setter upper, if you will, Pelipper is just the best, because it gives you so many utility moves, as well as being able to take advantage of its own rain. Not to mention, it's just very good at just setting up rain. That's just all it is. Like, Pelipper is just Rainbot at this point. But at the same time, with things like Kingdra, with Barraskewda, things like Keldeo and Urshifu Rapid Strike in Tier 1, Rain is a very like reliable way of getting kills. And yeah, I can't put it any lower than A just because Rain is so strong. Gardevoir, I really like Gardevoir. It's definitely... I'm going to move Blissey down. Fuck Blissey. And Chansey's going in D. I actually think it's worse than Politoed. Yeah, Gardevoir is really strong this gen. Certainly, I think better than it was. Do I think it's better than Weezing? I think it's better than Weezing. With Hidden Power being taken out, it does gain Mystical Fire. I don't know if it had it in the gen before. I don't think it did. But that's also a really, really nice addition to a one that really couldn't hit Steel types particularly well. I know it did get Focus Blast from memory, but I think Gardevoir is just really nice in this gen. There's not as many things that seem to check it. As a Specs user, Choice Scarf user, very good. Healing Wish is a nice option to have as well. I don't think it's as versatile as Celebi. I'm actually going to put Celebi higher. I think it's better than Heracross. Yeah, it's not as versatile as Celebi, but it also has like plenty of sets that it can run. Defensive sets are pretty solid as well, especially defensive like AV. I've seen that running around. Like, it's a very strong mon, and like as a more budget fairy type, I guess, because a lot of fairy types are higher up in the tiers. I think you can't go wrong with Gardevoir. Crawdon, man, Crawdon I really want to be good, but it never really is. I find in Draft League that it's just, because of its speed tier, it's just so slow, and its priority is nice, but similar to Azumarill in tier 1, it really relies on that priority a lot unless you're running a Dragon Dance set, and even then, at base 55 speed, you're not always outspeeding things that are going to be able to kill you. So I think that Crawdon, unless it's in Trick Room, is kind of just alright. It's not great. It doesn't have like the Stealth Rock utility that Marowak has. It doesn't have the same typing. I think Fire Ghost arguably is better than Water Dark, but I mean that's kind of like opinion. Actually, I'm going to use Marowak down. I think Marowak probably is like on par. I'm going to move Blissey. I don't like Chansey and Blissey. I just don't think they're that great. I think Snorlax is better. I think Crawdon and Marowak should just kind of be next to each other. Marowak gets Stealth Rocks and really hard-hitting stabs, whilst Crawdon gets, again, hard-hitting stabs, knockoff, and priority. So I think it's a pretty decent mon. But yeah, it just, about Trick Room, I feel like it doesn't quite do what it needs to do. It doesn't break what it needs to break. And yeah, it's just kind of lacking a little bit. Milotic, I think, is arguably the best bulky mon in this tier. I don't know if it's A or S. I'm going to put it in S tier. And I'm going to put it above Kingdra as well. My reasoning being is that Milotic, if run properly with the right sets, it can wall like an entire team. I've seen a few times like a Flame Orb set just be able to check every physical attacker, even like electric types and grass types that have been brought. I've seen coil sets that just, like, especially defensive coil set that just sits there and doesn't die. If you're running Flame Orb, it can't be toxic. Like, it can be really, really, really annoying to deal with. As well as having Flip Turn now, as well as Scald, it gets things like Ice Beam and Icy Wind. Toxic is always great on it. Not to mention it gets things like Mirror Coat as well, which can come in handy. Like, I think Milotic is arguably the best bulky water in this tier. And considering this tier's got like Slowking, it's got, looking through here, you got things like Seismitoad, you got Rotom Wash. That's saying a lot. Milotic is really, really good in my opinion. Next up we got Ninetales, Alola, and honestly, for the value it gives your entire team, I don't think Starmie's as good as Pelipper. Honestly, would I put P2 above those? No. I think Alola Ninetales gives you just so much. Its dual stabs are really spammable. Blizzard, 100% Blizzards in the Hail is just amazing. Similar to like Vanillux, I think it just needs like its dual stabs. In Vanilux's case, obviously it's single stab, because Freeze Dry hits the bulky waters. Blizzard hits so many different things. Like the bulky stills that would be able to check it are like Skarmory, Ferrothorn, all of which don't actually resist Blizzard. So you're getting like 2-hit KO'd from a base 110 Blizzard. Not to mention, Aurora Veil gives you fantastic team, team utility. You can set up so freely with it on your team. I think Aurora Veil is just a broken move in general, but Ninetales, incredible Pokemon. Venusaur, it's a great Sun sweeper, but I think Sun is far less prevalent. I think it's not a bad mon outside of Sun. I want to say it's like here-ish, because in the Sun it's actually incredible. Weather Ball being, I think it got buffed in this gen, I'm pretty sure, but Weather Ball plus it also got Earth Power in this gen. Its dual stabs hit for good damage anyway, it gets growth, and also if it's a bulkier set it can run Synthesis in the Sun and just regain so much health back. Its bulkier sets are alright, but not as good as the obviously offensive sets that you're going to run. 90% of the time you're going to run Venusaur and Sun. So yeah, I think it's a solid mon in this tier, but at the same time it doesn't have the same impact as Rain does. I think Sun is very good, but it's just not as like free as Rain is. Roserade, it's a good mon, but sadly not as good as it could be in this gen. I think it is actually better than these, but if it'll let me. Spikes and Toxic Spikes, fantastic utility. Leech Seed, Sleep Powder, good dual stabs, but it really does miss Hidden Power Fire in my opinion. Extra Sensory is a good option, as well as Shadow Ball. I know it gets those moves, but outside of that, it's not great. Its physical defense is kind of lackluster. Defensively, not amazing, and offensively, it hits really hard, especially with Life Orb sets. But I think it's just, there's better grass types in this tier, and there's just general better grass types in this gen. I think Roserade, it gives you a niche, and if you need that niche, then it's fantastic. But if it doesn't give you that niche, then there's just better things. Like if you already have that niche filled, you don't need to pick up Roserade. Lucario, I think, is solid. I think it's very good in this gen. I put it like here-ish. Have I got Starmie too high? No, I think Starmie's still amazing. Lucario is like a terrifying setup sweeper, I guess. Agility, Swords Dance, Nasty Plot. I want to say maybe it gets Calm Mind in this gen, but don't quote me on that, I don't know. Gets priority in Extreme Speed and Bullet Punch, Vacuum Wave. This one it doesn't get Vacuum Wave or something, and somebody quotes me on that. As well as tons of coverage, plenty of like it's one of those mons like kind of like Infinite in previous gens. It can run quite a few different sets, and until you know what set it is, like you don't know how to check it, and once you've learned how to check it, you could have already lost to it. So yeah, Lucario is a really good mon. I don't think it's quite A tier, but it's certainly not far off. Hippowdon, where is Hippowdon? I think it's better than Skarmory, but I think it's like top end A tier. I don't think it's S tier at all. I would say that as a bulky mon in this tier, like basically with tier 2 you're picking up bulk. I think most of the time you're looking for value in tier 2. Half the time it's going to be only bulky mons, and Hippowdon is fantastic. Gives you that sand option if you have picked up Excadrill, and also it's just very bulky. Even without sand, it doesn't need it. It can be really good. Slack Off with Toxic, it gets Stealth Rocks, Earthquake, Ice Fang, Crunch, Beef Fire Fang as well, Stone Edge. It just gets all the coverage it needs to be able to hit things, but it's also so tanky, and unless you're getting Toxic, there's not really that many ways of breaking down Hippowdon. Even with super effective hits, it can be a tough time sometimes. Next up we've got Magnezone, and honestly I think Magnezone, it gets weirdly buffed and weirdly nerfed at the same time, in that Hidden Power was always really detrimental to it, because Hidden Power Ground was just kind of spammable when you knew that Magnezone was coming. However, it also kind of benefited from having Hidden Power itself, and I don't think it's really got anything that's kind of covered that up. I saw somebody said they got Overheat like early in this gen in Data Mines, that it got Overheat, and I was like, man, that's like a massive buff to it. But it turns out it didn't. It just got like Body Press, I think was the only like decent move it got. But that's not to undervalue Magnezone at all. It hits really hard. Again with Analytic, it's slower, so it's not like Starmie where it gets value regardless of whether it outspeeds or not. It's definitely slower, and its typing is sort of checked by ground type still, but it is one of the electric types that can actually hit ground types for good damage. So I think it's a very strong Mon, but I don't think it's necessarily any higher than like low B. And I think we're about halfway through, so I'm going to take a sip of my drink. If you can guess what I'm drinking here, I'll move it slightly closer to the camera. If you can guess what I'm drinking to the flavour and even the brand, I will pin the comment. And I mean, you're like absurd for actually guessing what it is. But if you do, then kudos to you. But after that brief intermission, we'll get straight back into Tangrowth, one of my favourite Mons. Absolutely incredible. I think it's just like top tier. I think as a tier 2 pick, you don't get much better than Tangrowth. Sure, Bulky Grasses are worse in this gen, but it didn't ever really need Hidden Power Rice necessarily, because it has so much good coverage on the physical and the special side. You can run AV sets, you can run like physically defensive sets with Leftovers and Rocky Helmet. Sure, you die to a Light Breeze on the special side if you aren't AV, but it can be a like fantastic like Sleep Powder, Leech Seeder. It gets knockoff, it gets things like Sludge Bomb, Poison Jab. I want to say it gets Grassy Glide, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But if it gets Grassy Glide, then in a grassy terrain team, this is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I just can't speak up Tangrowth enough. It's such a great Mon. It's a reason why it is my team mascot, and it's not entirely because it just kind of worked with the team name. But Tangrowth, I love this Mon. I want to use it again at some point. It's just so good. It's so good. Togekiss, this thing's top tier this gen. So many good sets. Bulky fairies are generally quite good. With heavy duty boots, it only just got like better in this gen. Honestly, I say it's better than Skarmory. So many sets it can run. It can run Choice Scarf. It can be a Nasty Plot set. It can be Hustle Extreme Speed. Why not? It gets all the coverage that it needs to be able to hit the things that it struggles to hit with. Also, you can be that guy and run like Thunder Wave with Air Slash and just para flinch somebody to death. Like, that's a strategy. I don't necessarily think it's the best strategy. In terms of competitiveness, it's annoying to deal with, we'll say that much. But it's a very, very good Mon. Also a great Cleric. It has reliable recovery and roost. So, yeah, just kind of versatility as well as great typing and just a great Mon in general. Very bulky, good enough attack, good enough speed to be able to use it offensively and defensively. Togekiss is just a great pickup. Mamoswine for me, its dual stabs are amazing. It absolutely hits everything with its dual stabs. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's better than these. Priority and Ice Shard, it can be a Stealth Rocker, it gets knockoff, Stone Edge as well. It just doesn't do anything more than that. Realistically, you're not going to be more than like a Focus / Lead. You're going to be Choice Bandage, potentially Choice Scarf. Life Orb is a very, very common set. You can be AV as well. It does have a good HP stat. But outside of that, it's just a really threatening offensive Mon. Like, sure, it's kind of one-dimensional, but it's so good at what it does. Also has Freeze Dry if you want to run that for something like a Mantine. It'll be able to hit that for super effective damage. And yeah, it's just a good Mon. It's just a very good Mon all round. Very kind of top. I'd say it's like top tier, tier 2 Wallbreaker. It may be the best. I'm looking through the rest of the options here, and I think it might actually be the best. But yeah, you're basically just bringing this to do damage. Speaking of doing damage, Porygon Z, I think is probably around here. I think just spamming Tri-Attack, Choice Scarf Tri-Attack from Adaptability, Porygon Z, does so much damage. I get some good coverage as well, but like realistically, it's just a Glass Cannon. And you're going to be clicking Tri-Attack unless they have a Ghost type or a Steel type. Like, that's pretty much it. Not to mention you get the chance of actually getting some status on the Tri-Attacks, which is always kind of nice. There's very few things that realistically want to switch in on Porygon Z, but at the same time it's very one-dimensional and it is very, very frail. Whilst things like Mamoswine, they can take hits. Realistically, you're not taking a hit with Porygon Z, but still a really good Mon. Rotom Heat is amazing this gen. Heavy Duty Boots was the buff it needed, not to mention it's it gains nothing really but Heavy Duty Boots from memory. I don't think it gets much, but its dual stabs are very, very good, and I would argue it's better than Rotom Wash, but I'm going to put them around the same place, I think, because I've used Rotom Wash and it's amazing defensive typing, whilst I think Rotom Heat has generally got better better versatility. I think a Nasty Plot set on Rotom Heat is slightly better than it is on Rotom Wash. That's up for debate. I think it depends on the person, but it's just a really, really good Mon. Great defogger now. It's got Heavy Duty Boots and Pain Split, Toxic, Will-O-Wisp. Like, it gets so many good moves. I think the same really applies for Rotom Wash. These two are kind of together. I don't think there is too much that separates the two of them, so I'm just going to leave them there. Are they this high in a tier? I think they're worse than those two. I think they're probably around here-ish. Are they better than Alolan Ninetales? I don't think they are. I think Alolan Ninetales gives your team so much more. But yeah, the two Rotom forms here, very, very good. Rotom Mow is much worse, in my opinion. But I still think it, arguably tier 2, it's probably towards the bottom end. I'd probably put it about here. Grass, Electric, not such great coverage, and not such a great typing in general. Weaker to things, to more things than these two up here. And generally it's just going to be clicking Volt Switch. But I still think it's very good. I think it's got a good niche in this gen as a grass type that kind of deals with like flying types. I think flying types are very good this gen. But other than that, I don't think there's too much to Rotom Mow that's really that great. I think it is, yeah, it's down in C tier here. Dugtrio, honestly, I don't rate it particularly high. I think it's probably around here. Even with Arena Trap, it's very, very frail. And sure, you might pick up a kill, but realistically, somebody, if they know Dugtrio is coming, they're going to run Shed Shell, they're going to run like U-turn or Baton Pass, something like that. So they don't get hit by the Earthquake. Like, it's very one-dimensional and it's very easy to read. I just don't think it's a particularly great Mon, and yeah, that's just my opinion. I don't think Dugtrio is great. There's certainly matchups where it can be good. It can be very good if somebody hasn't prepared properly for it. But yeah, Seismitoad is just the worst Mon here. Like, it's decent in rain. But honestly, like, unless Dracovish is allowed, like, Dracovish is the one thing that realistically Seismitoad checks, and I think early gen Seismitoad kind of had people rating this thing far too highly. It's tier 3 at best. So sure, it's solid in rain. It's solid without rain. Like, it's still a good Mon, but honestly, I don't see enough from it to really warrant it being in tier 2. Scolipede, I think, is very, very strong. Very underrated. I probably put about here. Its dual stabs hit really hard. It gets access to Earthquake, to Rock Slide as well. Spikes, Toxic Spikes, it can be like, if Speed Pass is allowed, then you can, it's one of the best, if not the best Speed Passer. You can SD on this thing and just sweep by itself. It's got a very usable attack. There's very few things that realistically want to switch in on its dual stabs as well. I think it's like a surprisingly good typing for what it does, and obviously speed boost means that it can always be going quicker and quicker. It's very hard to revenge kill unless you have priority, and yeah, it just hits really hard. Crocodile, I think, is a very good Mon. I think it's probably about here. I don't think it's quite A tier, though people would probably argue it is A tier. Intimidate, Moxie, great abilities. Anger Point has its use against Urshifu, but realistically, if you come against somebody in Draft League, they're going to have a good sense of, like, I don't want to click Wicked Blow whilst a Crook is in the back, because I might just give it Anger Point, and Choice Scarf Anger Point Crook just beats teams. Unless you're running like a flying type that resists dark, like Togekiss or Mandibuzz, like Crook can then just sweep your team. So I don't think people are like really that dumb in Draft League that they would actually click Wicked Blow whilst Crook is around. But really strong Mon, great rocker, great scarfer. Honestly, not a bad choice band option as well. great stabs. Like, honestly, Ground Dark is not much worse, or arguably the same as Ground Ice, even. So yeah, really strong Mon. I think it's. I don't think it's quite A tier. I think it's just B tier. I wouldn't even put it better at Celebi, because Celebi has just so much more versatility, albeit probably a worse typing. Also, Celebi sets up rocks, so you can't even use that against it. We've got Darmanitan Zen mode. I'm not sure if we can hear that, my stomach's rumbling. I really should have got dinner before recording this. This thing on paper looks nuts. I'm honestly just going to put it like here, because I don't know. I've not seen anything of it, so it looks like it should be fantastic on paper. Like, the dual stab of Ice Fire hits so much of the game. Yeah, its stats are crazy. It's got good stabs, but at the same time you have to be 50% to actually get the Zen mode, and then you're taking 50% from rocks unless you're heavy duty boots. So who knows? I don't know. Until I see more of it, I don't know. Darmanitan, honestly, I think is probably here. Very, very good Wallbreaker, but very one-dimensional unless it's running heavy-duty boots, taking 50% from rocks. And honestly, you're clicking U-turn more than you're clicking Flare Blitz half the time. If your opposition has got a bulky water, you're just always going to be taking damage. If rocks go up, then you're taking 25% from rocks. You're taking potential Rocky Helmet damage, as well as if you click Flare Blitz, you're taking recoil. You're just going to drop very quickly. Yes, it's a very good Wallbreaker, fantastic Scarf option, terrifying Choice Bander, but realistically I don't see many other options for it. Maybe you run Zen mode and go for a special attack instead. Like, honestly, it's so frail that it just can't live a hit. So yeah, it's kind of alright. What I think is better than Porygon, I'm going to move Porygon Z up here. I actually think Porygon Z is better, because it's not weak to rocks and it hits just as hard in my opinion, but on the special side. Reuniclus is incredible. Is it S tier? I think it's just S tier. It's got 3 really usable abilities. Regenerator is broken, Magic Guard is broken, and you don't know which set it's going to be until it turns up in the game. It can be Magic Guard with Calm Mind, with Acid Armor. It gets like just enough coverage to be able to hit everything it needs to. It gets reliable recovery. It also can be like immune to toxic. It can be like an amazing assault vest user as well with Regenerator. I don't know if it gets teleport. If it gets teleport, then that kind of solidifies it as S tier. But really bulky, great Trick Room attacker. Also just like a phenomenal defensive mon in general. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna say, there's not much else to say. Amoonguss, I think, is really solid this gen, but I still think it's like B tier. It's definitely not Tangrowth. Spore is always really nice. It doesn't really gain too much else from what I remember. It's going to be running like Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, maybe runs Pollen Puff in this gen just because of psychic types. Foul Play is also an option. Realistically though, you're going to be clicking Spore and you're going to be switching. Regenerator, again, fantastic ability, but actually I think it's probably worse than a few of these. Yeah, I'm going to put it here. I think that's about right for Amoonguss. But realistically, that's all it's going to be. It's just going to be a bulky pivot that's going to click Spore, and if your opponent has got safety goals or has got a grass type, then it doesn't matter anyway. If it's got Overcoat user, it doesn't matter. Ferrothorn, I think is like... Honestly, I think it's like bottom of A tier. It sets up spikes, it sets up stealth rocks, it's got Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs. You can't run Rocky Helmet, so you get really nice chip damage. I'm gonna sneeze. We good. Yeah, it's dual stabs are great. The lack of hidden power fire really helps it in this gen, but at the same time, like fairy types to get mystical fire, plenty of things got like some extra fighting coverage. So it's a good mon. It's very, very good. Strong, bulky mon, especially in rain, it's exceptionally good. But I just feel like it's kind of lacking a little bit. I honestly want to move it down. Yeah, I'm going to put it there. I think that's a kind of reasonable place for it. I've never really rated Ferrothorn that highly. I think it's still a very good mon in general. but I think half the time you're going to be looking to run like potentially Leech Seed for recovery. You want to potentially have 2 moves like Knock Off, Power Whip, or Gyro Ball to hit something with. It's very easy to read, and I think like generally it's going to get whistled down pretty quickly unless you're running Leech Seed and Leftovers. So I don't know. I think Ferrothorn is pretty decent. I actually think it's worse than Celebi in many ways. So yeah, it's going to go there. Arcanine is very good this gen. Teleport is nice. Heavy Duty Boots is a huge buff for it. Intimidate is always good. It's got great coverage for Fire type. I think I'm going to put it right at the bottom of A. I think it's just a fantastic defensive and offensive mon. You can run Choice Banded with Extreme Speed, Wild Charge, Close Combat, gets Play Rough. Teleport obviously is a great option this gen. Morning Sun for recovery, Will-O-Wisp for dealing with physical attackers. It's a solid mon. I think it's like very bottom end of A. Haxorus, after playing with it and trying to deal with it in prep, honestly, I'm going to swap those two over. I think it's higher. I think it's like there. In terms of like offensive mons in tier 2, honestly, it's one of the best. First impression is huge for it. You can just run Choice Band. Like Adamant, Choice Band, First Impression can OHKO a Mew if it doesn't have much defense investment. So yeah, it's terrifying. If you run like Roselli Berry, you can set up on a Fairy type with Dragon Dance and get a Poison Jab. It's just fantastic. Like, it's such a good mon and such a free choice bander in this gen as well. I think maybe I overhype it, but at the same time, with 147 attack and 97 speed, it's got very good offensive presence and enough coverage this gen to really be a big threat. Mean Shao is solid. I think it's probably at the top end of C. Reckless High Jump Kick, fantastic. Regenerator is a great ability if you want to use it as a pivot. It also means that if you do miss the High Jump Kick, then you get some health back. Fake Out's nice utility. U-turn, knock off. Realistically, that's like the set you'll be running most of the time, is like fighting move, knock off, U-turn, filler move. Be that a second fighting move in case you don't want to miss High Jump Kick. It also gets close combat in this gen, so that's also pretty nice to use. Gets access to Carmine, but you're not running special, especially with no hidden power. I think its only special move is now fighting type. So yeah, you're not running special on this, but good speed tier. Hits really hard with Reckless High Jump Kick. Also a good pivot with Regenerator, so solid mon, but I don't think it quite reaches this B tier. Speaking of not quite reaching B tier, I think Bisharp is in that kind of category. Realistically, I think it's probably here. Good priority in Sucker Punch, good typing, but it struggles. It struggles so much to be able to actually be good enough offensively to break through a lot of things in the tier. Things like Arcanine, Rotom Wash, Rotom Heat, even like a Coalberry Slowking can kind of deal with it. Skarmory doesn't care that much. Like, there's just a lot of things that Bisharp struggles to break, and with Body Press as well, it just has another thing that it's weak to. So yeah, the Bisharp looks great, but it's just never that good. Mandibuzz, honestly, that is, looking through, it may not be the best mon in the tier. I think we're gonna come to some good ones, but Mandibuzz is phenomenal. Again, see my tier 1 tier list to really get what I like about Mandibuzz. But it's just a fantastic defensive mon. I think in this gen it is arguably one of the best defensive mons in the game. U-turn pivoting with the right team is just incredible. And if it's tier 2, I think it is arguably the best value in tier 2. Next up we got Durant, and Durant is solid. I think, honestly, it's better than Magnezone, it's better than Weezing. I'd say it's better than Venusaur. I kind of put it around here. As a wall breaker, incredible, but you are chancing the misses with Hustle. First Impression gives it an incredible stab that is priority, that you can just click on the first turn out. With Life Orb, Hustle, you're doing a ton of damage. It's got a fantastic speed tier, great attack, and also Home Claws does mean that you can kind of negate a little bit of that Hustle inaccuracy, and not to mention, like, just by itself, it's dual stabs are fantastic, and its coverage is just about enough for what it needs. Yeah, I love Durant. It's a great mon. Cobalion, I think, is probably in this tier as well. I would put it probably just below Durant, and that might be a bit of a hot take, but I feel like it just lacks the offensive presence it needs unless it sets up a Swords Dance. Great speed tier, great defense stat, but at the same time, if you're picking up a steel type, half the time you want it to check fairies, and I feel like Cobalion, you're going to have to draft another steel type, or at least another fairy check, or an extra fairy check to be able to deal with fairies. But other than that, it's a great mon. Good stealth rocker, gets initiative with Volt Switch, access to things like Stone Edge as well for just a little bit of coverage. Hits fire types, obviously, and some flying types could be a problem. I think its speed tier is solid, but it's one of those mons that without a Swords Dance, I feel like she's not really doing a whole lot. Diggersby, I think, is really good. I think it's a very strong Wallbreaker in this gen. I probably put it around here. Losing Return kind of really sucks for it. It's going to spam Earthquake. It's got great coverage, like fantastic coverage. Switch initiative with U-turn and also priority with quick attack. But at the same time, I feel like you can kind of come in and revenge it relatively well. It does mean you have to switch out. And like Choice Band hits ridiculously hard, like just absurdly hard. Choice Scarf is a nice option for it. Assault Vest is also an option. It does get spikes as well if you want to be that guy and run spikes. I think it's just a very kind of middling mon in this tier 2. Sylveon, honestly, I think it's worse than Togekiss in this gen. It's still good. I would probably put it like right at the top of tier B, of the B tier. Calm Mind is fantastic. It gets access to Curse as well if you want to boost your defenses. Pixelate is a great ability, meaning Hyper Voice is super powerful. You can run it offensive with Specs, you can run it defensively, you can run it specially defensively as well as Cleric. But outside of that, like, it's just got enough coverage of Mystical Fire and Psyshock, I think, to hit what it needs to. Yeah, it's a solid mon, very solid. If you need a bulky fairy, I think there's definitely better options. But at the same time, it's not a bad pickup at all. Goodra, I think, is definitely in this tier somewhere. Honestly, I think it's towards the bottom end of this tier. I want to put it above Durant, though. Goodra is a fantastic special wall, as well as being able to run things like Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Choice Specs. Amazing coverage on both the physical and the special side. And also the ability to be able to heal itself from status conditions with Rain Dance. On a rain team, it's fantastic because of hydration. But other than that, it's one of those mons that gets slowly whittled down and eventually will die. And other than having like just a fantastic moveset, I don't think it really has much else to give. But I still think it's better than some of these mons. I think I'm probably putting Cobalion too low. I think I put Cobalion just above it. Just because Cobalion has the potential to set up, whilst Goodra really only has like Curse and Acid Armor. Klefki is really nice. I wouldn't put it too high, but I wouldn't put it above any of these. Actually, I think it'd go into C, just because. In fact, I'm going to put it below me and Chao. Its dual steps would be fantastic if it had a better attack or special attack stat. Prankster is always great. Thunderwave, Spikes. I'm trying to think what else actually Klefki gets. It's been so long since I've actually seen it, but it's not a bad option. It's just not a great option as well. Like, it's going to be there for just Prankster sort of stuff, and I feel like it's just outclassed by a lot of things in this tier. Incineroar, I think, is definitely up here with like Arcanine. I don't think it's better than Arcanine. Actually, I think it's probably down in this tier. I put it around here. Its typing is great. Heavy Duty Boots has definitely given it a much better niche. It gets Fake Out, it gets Parting Shot, and U-turn. Special Side is not too bad as well, but you probably won't be using it as much. I think it's a really strong defensive mon with Intimidate, and it's just great for momentum as well. Its typing is really hard to switch in for some teams, as well as some coverage that really kind of means that it can be difficult to switch into. As a defensive mon, it's not too bad. I've used it, and like Assault Vest is a great set. You can also be like Choice Scarf. I've seen a lot of the, I've seen some people run the Bulk Up, Power Trip, Flame Charge, Weakness Policy set, or whatever it is. That's also a great set because it definitely has a chance to live a lot of hits from full health. So yeah, I think Incineroar is really strong. Primarina, in my opinion, is the best wall breaker. Do I want to go out to say it's the best wall breaker? I think it might be the best wall breaker just out and out for this tier. Water Fairy is ridiculously hard to switch into. It has just enough coverage and now has Flip Turn as well for initiative. Like, sub-calm mindsets is always scary. It can run Assault Vest. It's even possible to run it Scarfed. Like, it's just about got enough speed that you can run it. And yeah, I think Primarina is just a fantastic wall breaker in this gen. Very, very difficult to prep for. Rabombi, I'm a big fan of Rabombi, but I think even in tier 2, it's like, it's kind of pushing it being in tier 2. I think it's better than Durant, but I wouldn't put it any higher than Durant. Sticky Web's fantastic. Quiver Dance option, it does lack Hidden Power Fire, so it doesn't really hit any of the ground types anymore. By ground types, I mean steel types. Its dual stabs are fantastic. With Quiver Dance as well, it gets access to Stun Spore, gets U-Turn for initiative. But other than that, it's really kind of lacking in this gen, in my opinion. Without Hidden Power, it's worse, in my opinion, this gen. Speed tier is fantastic, but not a particularly great special attack. So yeah, Rabombi is kind of, I would put it, yeah, I'll keep it there. Lycanroc, in my opinion, is incredible in this gen. Do I think it's better than Mamoswine? I think it is. Honestly, I'm going to keep going up. I mean, for people who know me, know I'm a big fan of Lycanroc. Lycanroc does get so much coverage in this gen. Sure, it lacks the Z moves it did in previous gen, but I don't think it necessarily needs it. Now it gets access to like Play Rough, Close Combat, Psychic Fangs. It has the coverage it needs to be just breaking through so many things. Tough Claws boosted with Life Orb does so much damage. If you set up to Swords Dance as well, it gets a Cell Rock for priority. Like, Stone Edge hits so hard. Not to mention it got some good coverage already with Drill Run and Crunch. So yeah, for me, Lycanroc is a fantastic either wall breaker or setup sweeper. Its speed tier is amazing. So yeah, Lycanroc for me is absolutely incredible. Araquanid, in my opinion, is the best. It's the best Sticky Webber in the game. I would put it around here. Liquidation from this thing hurts. Water Bubble is such a great ability. Scald even does good damage from it. Water Bug is one of the best typings in the game. Like, genuinely, I think it's one of the best typings in the game. So hard to switch into. If they'd given this first impression, like, that would just be nuts. Stockpile Rest Talk sets are definitely viable. Heavy Duty Boots makes it a very easy switch in with that special defense stat. Like, it can sponge a lot of special attacking hits. Gets access to Mirror Coat as well, which can be fantastic for anything that's like an electric type to pivot. Yeah, Araquanid is just fantastic all round. Great dual stabs, great Sticky Webber. It's a little bit slow, but at the same time, like, you're going to be hitting something for super hard, like super good damage if they do stay in. Silvally, in my opinion, it's not that good. Like, sure, it can be any type, but I still feel like you're trading away so much. Like, you can't have an item if you have a different type. Normal is alright, but it's not amazing. Sure, I guess the buffed multi-attack in this gen, as well as tons of coverage. I found that if you want to run multi-attack, half the time you're also wanting to run a special move with it, because it gets things like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, I think it gets Flamethrower as well, Flash Cannon, Grass Pledge. Like, most of its coverage is on the special side. It does get access to Parting Shot and U-Turn, which is always really nice, and Defog as well, not to forget that it gets Defog. But I just don't think it's as good. I think it's definitely lacking in this gen, in every gen. I think it's a very good tier 3 pickup. If you can get it in tier 3, it's fantastic. In tier 2, it's just, you can get so much more for your value. Mimikyu, it got nerfed in this gen. I still think it's incredible. In my opinion, I think it's like up here, it's A tier. Its dual stabs are just ridiculous. It's so hard to switch into. It gets a free Swords Dance whenever it wants. It gets access to things like Will-O-Wisp and Destiny Bond as well. Certainly Mimikyu is just, it's just one of the most one of the most potent setup sweepers in the game. I definitely think it lacks a little bit without having the Z move, because it could just kind of like blow something back with Mimikyu and Z. But at least with Life Orb, it's still hitting pretty hard. Its speed stat is pretty decent. So yeah, Mimikyu is really good. Just checking what time. This is nearly an hour video. Jesus, I need to get through the rest of these mons. Slowbro, Galar, honestly, I've not seen enough of it, but from what I've seen, it's like a tier 3 mon. Cinderace is amazing. Heavy duty boots with core change, U-turn, Pyro Ball, high jump kick, gunk shot. I think it's probably about here-ish. I think it's in line with these guys. Can be bulky. Core change is really, really nice if the opponent wants to set up hazards. Barrascuda, great in the rain. I don't think it's quite as good as Kingdra, but I'm going to put it like... I'm going to put it just above Pelipper. In the rain, it's incredible. I think you've got to really judge it for when it's going to be in rain. Choice Band with Propeller Tail. I think it's Propeller Tail, not Swift Swim. For it could get Swift Swim. I don't know. Propeller Tail does something different. It's not affected by like Storm Drain, I want to say. Swift Swim with like Life Orb or Choice Band, it gets access to Flip Turn, and with its ridiculously high attack stat, it's hitting really hard, but it's extremely fail. If it's not in rain, it's D tier, it's trash, it's garbage. But in rain, fantastic. Toxtricity hits super, super hard, but it really just struggles to actually switch in on anything, and it also struggles to kind of like revenge kill anything. Its speed stat is not good enough, in my opinion, but it does hit just extremely hard, like absurdly hard. I think it's better than Celebi in a sense. But yeah, it's basically just a great wall breaker. You can run Salt Vest sets, but realistically, you're just going to want to run like Choice Specs and click Boom Burst or Shift Gear, Throat Spray and click Boom Burst, Stall Power, Sludge Wave, Overdrive. Poltergeist, honestly, I love its design, but it's D tier for me. There's other options than Shell Smash, but at the same time, it really struggles to deal with any kind of dark type. Yeah, it struggles to deal with normal types as well. Will-O-Wisp is a great option for it. Strength Sap is a broken move, but I don't know. Poltergeist to me is just kind of, if it's in tier 3, not a bad option. As a tier 2, I feel like you're really wasting a pick. Hatterene is very solid. I think it's probably C tier. Swap this back over. It's top of C tier in my opinion, because it is quite bulky. Draining Kiss is annoying. Calm Mind is a good set. It gets great coverage. Magic Bounce is a really nice ability that I think a lot of people tend to forget, especially on this mon. So yeah, Hatterene, dual stabs, great, but it's definitely not as good as Gardevoir unless it's in Trick Room. Like, it's a great Trick Room setter, don't get me wrong, but it also has to take a hit, and it doesn't really appreciate taking hits particularly well. Definitely has its uses, but I think the Gardevoir is just better as a Psychic Fairy type. Grimmsnarl, in my opinion, is up here. I think it's worse than Alolan Ninetales because it doesn't get Reflect and Light Screen up in one turn, but its ability to be able to taunt things to stop the defog is incredible. Its dual stabs are really, really, really good, as well as it having pretty good coverage. It can run T-Wave, it can run Bulk Up as well. It can even run Nasty Plot if you want to run a special set. So Grimmsnarl has got great versatility. I just used it in PTL, and honestly, it gives your team so much more value. If you have a setup sweeper, it's so free after Grimmsnarl, especially if you build your team around being able to use Grimmsnarl screens. Things like Thunderwave are really nice mons like Holucha that run around in tier 1 with terrains. So yeah, Grimmsnarl is good. I think its value is only going to go up when the Tapus come out and like all the legendaries come into the game. Obstagoon, I think, is like bottom end, probably around here, I'd say. It's like a bottom end tier, A tier mon. Sure, it's weak to fighting types for weak, it's got some resistances, but it just doesn't care when it hits as hard as it does. Guts is a fantastic ability, and its dual stabs are pretty much unresisted in the game. Not to mention it gets access to close combat, parting shot as well. So I just slammed my desk. I'm really defiant on this one. It's a terrifying one to build for, and in the right situation with the right team support, I believe Obstagoon is like a massive wall breaker threat. Again, looking forward to using it at some point, but moving on, we got Indeedee, and for me, Indeedee is like right near the top. I'd say it's probably around here, a little bit behind actually, probably around here. Psychic Surge with Expanding Force hits ridiculously hard. Even if you don't want to click Expanding Force, it does get access to Psyshock, it gets access to Mystical Fire, Shadow Ball, Hyper Voice is a great stab option. Things like Trick are also really nice. But other than that, that's kind of all it does. And its speed stat is not great. Its defense stat is pretty terrible. Like, its stats generally aren't very good. But Psychic Surge with Expanding Force hits it just hits so hard. It's absolutely nuts how hard this thing hits. I'm going to move it down so we can see the full tiers. Next up we got Copperaja, and honestly I think this is a tier 3 Mon in my opinion. But I think it's actually better than some of these Mons here. I'm going to put it down this low. Like, it hits really hard and it's relatively bulky, but it's also super slow. And Trick Room, it can be really good. But other than that, like, Iron Head with Sheer Force hits really hard. It has plenty of moves to take advantage of that as well. And it has moves to take advantage of Heavy Metal as well, with Heavy Slam and Heat Crash. Its coverage is kind of nuts, like Power Whip as well. Means that it very rarely gets checked. But at the same time, like, it just isn't bulky enough in my opinion to be able to take hits well enough for it to be a really scary wall breaker. Dracozolt, I think in tier 2 is pretty decent. And again, I think Hustle is just such it's such a bad ability. In tier 2, I think Dracozolt is decent value. I'm going to put it at the bottom of tier A. Bolt Beak from Banded is going to be doing tons of damage. If you get Sand, if your league allows it, Sand Rush Bolt Beak is hitting so hard. But other than that, it gets walled by ground types. It gets like walled by some fairy types as well. I think it's just an alright Mon. I don't think it's amazing. Duraludon, honestly, I've not seen a whole lot of this. I have seen it like straight up beat a team by itself. Iron Defense Body Press. I think it's definitely better than Bishop. Honestly, I think Bishop's too high. I'm gonna put it like down here. Actually, Copperage is better than Bishop. I think Rotom's better than Bishop. Sorry, Bishop's kind of just sucks. Duraludon, I'm gonna put it there. I think it's got some use. I think as again, like with Cobalion, you kind of want your Steel type to be able to check Fairy. It doesn't, and you're gonna be wanting like another Fairy resist. But at the same time, it's still a great Mon. It does give you Dragon and Steel in one core. Great typing, and I think it's definitely got a lot of uses. Sorry, I'm like scratching my nose a lot. My hay fever is just starting to play up and it's going to drive me nuts. But yeah, Duraludon, very solid Mon indeed. Zarude, I've not seen a lot of it, but I think it's like a lower end, like tier A. I want to put it like before Dracozolt. I have no idea, to be honest. Until I see more of this, I couldn't give you an honest opinion, but it does seem to hit hard. It's relatively bulky as well, with good speed stat. So I can see it being like a little bit of a Zeraora sort of thing, where later in the gen we start putting it higher up and higher up. But for now, I think like low end tier A is just fine. And last up, we have got Blastoise. And honestly, I'm going to put that towards the bottom end of tier B. I think it's very solid. Shell Smash is a great option for it. Rapid Spin is great. But you see it used more defensively than you will Shell Smash. And I also find that Shell Smash, either it gets outsped by a Scarfer, or it just doesn't quite do enough to be able to pick up the kills that it needs to. Does get checked by quite a few types as well. So yeah, I think Blastoise is decent, but like nothing special. Unfortunately, with my crop, you can't quite see all the Mons. But yeah, this is your D tier Mons. They're just kind of there. We'll go up so you can see the higher tier Mons. This is, for me, like, I think bulk is definitely what you're looking for in tier 2. So to me, like, bulkier Mons are the better value picks. But let me know what you guys think. Like, obviously this is my opinion. Everyone's entitled to opinions. One person's trash is another person's treasure, I think is the saying. And vice versa. Like, something like Milotic for me is fantastic. For others, may just be completely awful and a terrible Mon that's passive and all this sort of stuff. So If you disagree with me, then please do leave a comment down below. Let's get some conversation starting if we can. And yeah, if you're enjoying the tier videos, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are enjoying the content. And until the next one, have a great day, guys.